Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today we're offering a 1998 film, a European co-production with Algeria, Living in Paradise, directed by Bourlem Guerdjou. This is a first film, but it's really a remarkable film. It tells the story of a family living in France in the shanty towns built after World War II to house the many workers who came from North Africa to build modern France. We'll be talking about that issue, the film's style, and this tradition of filmmaking after today's screening. It's a pleasure to welcome here on City Cinematheque the distinguished scholar from Brown University, Reda Bensmaia, an expert on the Algerian cinema and literature of the 20th century. Now, take this opportunity to enter into the world of Algerians living in France in 1960 in Living in Paradise. Welcome back to New York after your voyage to France, and a France we don't know very well at all, 40 years ago. This is, I think, an extraordinary first film by any filmmaker, and a film that addresses a whole set of issues of history that are very unusual and certainly not very well thought about here in the United States or perhaps even in France. To talk about that and a whole set of other things, we have the privilege today of having a City Cinematheque, Professor Reda Bensmaia from Brown University. Reda chairs French Studies at Brown, and he's a distinguished scholar of 20th century French and Francophone literature with particular interest in his own native country of Algeria. He's published a number of books on the cultural history and literature and film of Algeria and more generally of North Africa. Welcome to City Cinematheque, Reda.
Thank you, thank you.
Let's start with this film as a version of history. Is this, to someone who doesn't know anything about this history coming to the film, is this an often told tale or is it a rarely told tale?
I would say it's rather rarely told tale for at least two things. One is certainly the fact that the Bourlem Guerdjou dared, I would say, to produce a film that where the setting is the shanty house, that the, I would say the immigrant, and particularly the Algerian immigrant, where they lived. And I think that I don't know of many films at that time that have shown, I mean, what was the everyday life in shanty house. And I think it's obvious that when you see the film, you realize that it was something absolutely, I mean, incredible. And the conditions of life were absolutely, I mean, unbearable. Right. So, and I think many French people were, in a way, shocked to see that, I mean, the French government accepted, tolerated this kind of situation. So that's one thing. And also, I think in the movie, at some point, there's this demonstration, which has been, in fact, completely erased for a long time. I would say at least for, I think we have to wait until Jacques Chirac becomes president, where people started to think that maybe they should refer to it, they should document it, and also inscribe it in the history of France, I mean, for the French people.
Right.
And I think now you have a street, I think, that mentions, because it's a very specific date. It happened the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th of October 1961, where thousands of Algerian immigrants were called by the FNN to go to Paris for a demonstration, and the demonstration was a pacific one. I mean, obviously, I mean, compared to what happened recently, they weren't there to, I mean, burn cars or anything, just to manifest their presence in France on the one hand, and also, obviously, they wanted the French people to be aware of the fact that the war was going on in Algeria, right, and that they thought that something should be done about it. And in fact, what happened is that the repression was absolutely incredibly harsh. Tens of thousands of people have been arrested and parked. In fact, it reminded some people afterwards the Vélodrome d'Hiver event, where the Jews were parked in the Vélodrome, this big stadium in France. So they did almost the same thing for the immigrants. They had more, I think it was 14,000 people, wow, parked in different places in Paris. But the worst, what was a little bit more problematic is that the police, the repression was absolutely extraordinarily harsh, and some people say that 200 people have been killed. Some were found hanged in trees, and some were just floating on the river Seine.
Okay.
So this is why I think this film is important, because it brings about, and it happened at the same moment, historical moment, where on the one hand you have the shanty houses, and this very important event. That, and for the French it took 30 years before they inscribed it in their history. It was repressed completely.
Well, this is a sort of way in which you could say achieved modernity erases how that modernity was achieved, because one of the things we're talking about here is France's, push forward to retain its position as one of the leading industrial countries of Europe, yes, in the post-war period, and the need so common to industrial nations around the world of the labor necessary for that. So the gates open for the Algerians and others from the Maghreb, the North Africa, to come and, from a point of view of social history, the buildings are built upon the labor of these people.
Exactly. In a way, it's again what Bourlem Guerdjou wanted to do, and I know that through an interview that he gave. He said, I wanted to give to the French people an idea of our history, and he says our history because he was born in France. He's what they are called the Beur, right, nation in France. And also, it's an homage to my parents and to the generation of my parents, my father and my mother, etc. So, and I think we see that in the film. An attempt at bringing something, in the contemporary scene, right, make French people become aware of the fact that these people were not stealing anything from them.
Right.
They have been asked to come, and of course they needed to migrate. But at the same time, I think the film reminds the spectator that at that time, the immigrants were French, part of the French Empire.
Right, exactly.
And at the same time, they were French, but they weren't recognized the same rights. And as a matter of fact, the Algerian people didn't have the status of citizens. They're the sujets français, okay, subjects.
Subjects of France, not citizens of France.
Exactly. So which is a little bit, today it seems, bizarre or completely absurd or incredible, but it was that's exactly what the situation was.
But you know, I mean, many nations have contradictions like this. One of the things
Sure.
I like to think about in the parallel between this film as a French film is the parallel between this and a number of American independent films that come from particular communities of people whose voices have not been heard or restored to history. So you have African American filmmakers or Latino filmmakers
Yes.
or Asian American filmmakers who are saying, well, wait a minute, we have a history in this country as part of this country that has not really been seen by the dominant cinema. So we have to bring our voices. And I see this as this film as very much as parallel to that kind of phenomenon in the American cinema.
I would say it's more than parallel. In a way, I think Bourlem Guerdjou's generation was influenced by American cinema.
Okay.
There's, I mean, I haven't studied this
Right.
Specifically, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Bourlem Guerdjou referring to a certain number of American movies,
Right.
where you could see exactly what you mentioned, the fact that a certain number of groups, certain aspects of the history are taken care of by filmmakers and say, we have to inscribe this in our history.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely the case. And you know, and again, well, once again, there's always been an independent American cinema, a kind of alternative voice. I mean, this goes back to something to the fact that the great African American filmmaker Oscar Micheaux made a response to Birth of the Nation.
Yes.
But we also think of people emerging in the mid-1980s, which is almost 15 years before this film is made. You have the rise of voices like John Sayles with his interest in social history,
Sure.
Spike Lee,
Spike Lee, certainly.
etc., and you know, numerous others, Julie Dash, etc. So there is this model available, and available certainly, by the way, in the cinemas of Paris, where he's going to see movies as a young man.
Absolutely.
Because these are well-known films in France.
But what is interesting, I think, in the movie is that with Bourlem Guerdjou's generation, you have something that other filmmakers couldn't do for a long time. Think of Alain Resnais, for example, Nuit et Brouillard, or Muriel,
Right.
where you have just an allusion to certain events, for example, the Algerian War, or, I mean, the fact that France discriminated against certain minority groups or something like that. It would be just a hint at something. Whereas in this case, I think what Guerdjou wanted to do beyond the homage
To a generation, yeah.
to a generation, he wanted the French people to become aware of something that for him is absolutely important if one wants to, I mean, overcome what we still witness in France. The fact that a lot of French people have great difficulty to, for example, accepting the idea that maybe France is becoming a little bit more multicultural.
Right, right.
So that's very difficult, I think.
Well, and one of the virtues of this film, I think, using the film medium, is the materiality of that experience. That is,
Yes,
we are
indeed.
with the family in the shanty town. The camera follows when, for example, the wife arrives and she's looking for the first time at the unpaved paths in between, and how she must pick her way among the mud and muck. In doing so, we the fragility of the house that's built illegally for the other family in the quest for money, and the way in which this less than ideal house can be destroyed in less than 5 minutes by the police. All of that, we have this incredibly concrete experiential sense
Yes.
of how people have lived.
And the title of the movie, in fact, refers to something very interesting. Vivre au paradis,
Yeah.
live, I mean, in
Living in
paradise. In fact, refers to the HLM, habitation à loyer modéré, which is, in fact, a very cheap housing system that exists in France. And the idea of the main character is to go to live there, and for him it would be a big, I mean, promotion, I mean, in his social status, and also to live in paradise, which is another interesting.
No, it's a you know, it's a sympathetic but deeply ironic title. Because we understand how he views it, but then the film lets us see it in the broader context that's unavailable to him.
Exactly, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
It seems when you see what it is, you think, well, normally someone who has a regular job should be able to afford that. But at that time, obviously, it wasn't possible. The irony of it is that now in France, they are destroying the HLM, these buildings, because they realize that it's ugly. I mean, from, you know, all kinds of perspectives, it's not healthy for the people. And also it created the problem of the banlieue.
Absolutely.
You know? And so now I think, as a matter of fact, they created the minister for this. And they're trying to cope with it. They also hired someone who is a Boer from, you know, the second generation immigrant, and he's supposed to deal with the problem of minorities.
Right.
I don't know where it's going to lead, but I think it's a good move, let's say.
Well, it's again, as you're saying, everything's now in the open. At least, I mean, you can't move forward unless you're discussing what the actual issues are, or unless you're dealing with a real and material history, as opposed to a kind of mythology, or this is one of the things that you've written about in your scholarship, or you practice a kind of intentional amnesia. There's certain things you're not going to remember or recognize about the past, but that continue influencing the present.
Exactly. And there's something that you just, I think, alluded to, is what is inscribed in filigrane in the film, from Guerdjou's perspective, is the status of women.
Oh, very important point, yeah.
In the movie, because at first Nora, the wife, is supposed to be taking care of the kids. She's supposed to stay home, even though home is not home at all. I mean, it's une cabane. And at the same time, she's not supposed to be involved politically.
Right.
Of what happens at a certain point is that we realize that she's in fact more, I mean, conscious politically than her husband. And at the same time, I think this is new, I think, in the production of this kind of films, if we can talk of a kind of film, but the fact that the main character, the male character, is not someone kind of positive hero.
No,
he betrays his own constituency. I mean,
absolutely.
And also, he doesn't care about the political aspect. I mean, the political situation at that time. And it's through his wife that something, an event, a political event, is going to happen. I mean, in his consciousness. So I thought I was really interested in that aspect, because generally it's difficult to present the male character as, in a way, the second personage of the movie, you know.
Well, and it's very interesting to me, because in one sense, coming back to possibly the influence of you know, American films, but many global films, we have a male protagonist who has what seems to be utterly admirable goals. He wants to, he rejects, the free prostitution offered. He wants to reunite with his family. He wants to better the life of his family. So in a certain sense, we get on the train with him because his goals seem so reasonable and so admirable. And then what the film does is complicate this, because then it puts us in the situation of watching him to make decisions that are not the decisions he really wants to make, but he thinks he has to make them in certain ways. And that, of course, as you point out, the film introduces this whole notion of not only national solidarity for the independence of Algeria, but simply the fact that as dreadful as this shanty town can be, it can be a community.
That's right. That's right.
And he begins to reject that as well, and to betray his friends, and to become, to take on this kind of, to imitate a kind of radical individualism that he thinks is the only path for his family.
Right, right. And that reminds me something very important. Obviously, the demonstration of October 1961 is a very important one. And I think even today in France, they are still working through it, trying to deal with it. Because, I mean, when it happened, nobody wanted to talk about it. And then some people, historians, there are very important historians who started writing about it, and also who tried to show that if one starts erasing something, an event like this one, then there's no limit at erasing other things.
Oh, yes.
And they would refer it to what happened, you know, in the history, for example, of the Vélodrome d'hiver.
Yeah.
Because, in fact, some historians created the concept for it. It's le syndrome de Vichy, the Vichy syndrome,
Okay.
where for 30 years, at least, in France, nobody wanted to talk about what happened about the French Jews.
Right.
The fact that the police contributed into gathering them for the Nazis.
Right.
So, the syndrome de Vichy, Vichy syndrome, what happened? Again, it's the Algeria syndrome,
Right.
where you don't want to talk about the, for example, for many years, nobody wanted to name what happened in Algeria a war.
Right.
It was les événements, the Algerian events. And again, it was, even Mitterrand didn't want to recognize that it was a war. You had to wait Chirac's elections. For what reason? That's for the historian to decide, but it's interesting that Chirac wanted to recognize the Algerian war as a war, not as event. So that's one thing. And also, I think what Bourlem Guerdjou had in mind, because I discussed it with him, he said, October 1961, nobody wanted to talk about it, no event, no plague, I mean, signal in the streets of Paris, whereas Sharon, which is the event that happened for French communists. 2 communists have been killed in a demonstration against the Algerian war. And now it has been immediately canonized as an historical event.
Okay.
Every year, Sharon there are demonstrations about Sharon. You see, so there's a kind of discrepancy here. Something happened in France, it's a very important event. On the one hand, I mean, it is celebrated, and the other, it's not.
It's very interesting. One of the things you said a little bit earlier intrigues me also about this, the notion of this being an homage to his parents' generation. And there's a way in which, I mean, you know, that's nice in a familial way, I mean, you know, at the personal level, but also generations get a sense that, well, you know, the parental generation or the grandparent generation is the first one, they will pass. And with them passes a certain firsthand experience.
Yes.
And a certain recognition of what their experience was. So in a way I see, again, this film parallel to the fact that we've had in the United States in recent years a revival of World War II movies. And one of the things I said, well look, as I said to a friend once, I said, look, everyone who's making these films are baby boomers whose parents, this was the key experience of their life,
yes,
World War
yes.
II. And their parents are disappearing or have disappeared. So there's this impulse that to be as close to the experience of I'll call the primary informants as possible. You've got to get it, because
right.
they're going to disappear. And when they disappear, if you haven't gotten this in some way, whether it be in a novel or a film or musical composition, then it becomes more and more difficult, and then starts to become impossible or abstract in certain ways.
It's as if you needed one generation I mean, has to be taken over by the next generation.
Yeah.
This is too much to take for the people who lived that.
Right.
But I think in the case of our film, the specificity comes from the fact that the generation of the people who lived the first immigrant group, generally they were uneducated people.
Right.
And I think for the generation of Bourlem Guerdjou, it was a matter also of say, we have changed.
Right. We have
You're not
tools.
dealing with the same people.
Right.
We went to the school, French school, like any other French, and so we know our history, and we want to share it with you. But obviously, we're going to add some little paragraphs that have been, haven't been written in a way. So I see the film as a way of, rewriting or writing history, not rewriting in, a better way, but just inscribing things that have been just forgotten.
Okay. Well, I hope people won't forget what we've talked about in these 30 minutes, because we've actually come to the end of the time we have.
Okay.
If you'd like more information about City Cinematheque, or more generally about City University Television, please visit our website. Our address is www.cuny.tv. You'll find click on there for City Cinematheque, for our other programs. You'll also be able to communicate with us, any comments you have, suggestions, by email that you'll find on our website. Once again, please visit www.cuny.tv. Reda, I want to thank you for bringing your expertise here. And,
Thank you for having me.
Oh, great. It's not so many invitations to talk about Algerian film on TV.
That's good.
No, but that's exactly why we're here, is exactly to be able to do that sort of thing. So thanks so much, and I hope we'll have another occasion
Thank
to work
you.
in.
Me too.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us today to see this marvelous and rarely screened film. And please join us again as we stroll through the archives of film history here on City Cinematheque. In any case, bye-bye for today.